With the sun low in the sky, Eve pulled up to her grandmother's Tennessee mountain home, a small cabin perched within the peaks of the Great Smoky Mountains, a few miles from the northern edge of the national park. The place was more beautiful than 17-year-old Eve had cared to remember. She used to hate the rustic feel of the Appalachian-style home, but now it looked like a painting to her, constructed of rich, dark brown logs surrounded by nothing but trees. The porch jutted out to meet her at the end of a short cobblestone walkway, and the shrubbery along the way, while overgrown, was the brightest and greenest she'd ever seen. Inside was dusty but spacious and sparsely decorated, thanks to her mother and aunt claiming all the good pieces for themselves. The only remaining items were a small cherrywood coffee table and an old mustard-colored wool sofa in the living area. Eve smiled at the fireplace encased in stone below the staircase. She remembered the locals bringing her grandmother firewood because everyone knew and loved her, and in small towns like Gatlinburg, where there were exactly 21 Black people, it wasn't unusual for them all to take care of each other. It was cool for June, so Eve imagined she'd spend many evenings by the hearth, just like she used to. A narrow flight of steps led up to the bedroom Eve used during her previous 9-month stint there. The full-sized bed remained in the exact same spot, evoking the many nights she'd cry herself to sleep, feeling abandoned by her parents and, quite literally, sick to her stomach as her belly swelled with a child she would never be able to keep. As a minor act of rebellion, she'd carved her initials in the wooden bedpost. She tittered seeing it there now. Her grandmother rarely went up there, the steps too arduous as she grew older, but Eve would have bet her weight in gold that Hazel Beasley knew about the carving all the same. "I miss you, lady," Eve said out loud, her words riddled with her contrition. In the end, Eve didn't call enough, never came to visit after she got away, too inundated with unpleasant memories to ever consider returning. Her grandmother came to New York twice, but hated it as much as teenage Eve had hated Gatlinburg. Hazel had found the city frenetic, which most visitors would likely agree with, but it was especially true for a 17-year-old woman used to being alone. 20 years ago, this was the only house for several miles, and Hazel liked it that way. The closest grocery store was a 10-minute drive, and it was just about the only reason she would get into her car. Anything beyond that, and she risked crossing paths with all the tourists. Eve would always ask to go down to Dollywood, desperate like Ariel to be where the people were. Wandering free, etc. But her grandmother, with her aversion to the amusement park crowd, would perpetually refuse. "Ain't nobody taking you down there with all them folks." Now, Eve treasured this empty space. New York City was frenetic. Between her parents and Leo, it was far too crowded for her grief. She relished the idea of locking herself away in her grandmother's home and shutting out the world if she wanted to. And she really wanted to. Within the hour, Eve had finished unpacking the 2 carry-on-sized suitcases meant to sustain her for the next few weeks, maybe months. They were full of mostly light sweaters and leggings. She wouldn't need much else to sit around alone, and she'd be headed back to New York before it got unbearably cold. After finding some candles and matches to get her through the night, Eve briefly considered calling her mother, per her father's request, but she was too tired by the drive and, well, life, to feign cordiality. She opted for a quick text, just to let them know she'd arrived safely. But when it didn't go through, she remembered her mother's warning of how bad the reception was up here,